Good morning, everybody. So I'm Brian Greenwood from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. So thank you for inviting me to this symposium, and I'm always pleased to come back to Johns Hopkins. I've had the privilege of doing that a few times and interacting with the people in the Malaria Research Institute here. You may wonder a little bit why I've been asked to a meeting on elimination, because most of my work has actually been in these dark red areas rather than the areas of Africa which are approaching elimination. But I do have one qualification for that, and that is I'm chairman of the WHO's Malaria Elimination Certification Panel. And it might just be, I'll allow just a couple of minutes just to explain what's actually happening in WHO, and I think Kim will go into that in more detail in the next talk. But it is interesting because when WHO was set up, a malaria expert committee was set up very near the beginning of WHO, and that was very important. And that committee supervised all the first eradication activities, and some of you will have accessed some of those reports, which are very, very famous in the history of malaria eradication. But something sort of happened in the 1980s, 1990s, and I was privileged to be made a member of that committee somewhere, I think, in the middle of the 1980s. But the committee only met once in the next 15 years, and the last meeting was in 1998. And for reasons I still don't quite understand, that committee was sort of just kept in the background, in the cupboard somewhere. And the problem arose when the first countries, about 10 years ago, began to come to WHO and ask for certification of elimination. And it was found that the only sort of group in the world who had the authority to recommend that was that committee. And there were one or two hurried weekends when sort of people were assembled to do that. And this was clearly not satisfactory. And so then WHO set up a new system, which Kim will probably say a little bit more about, to actually make this a much more professional business. And now there are two committees of WHO. One is the Malaria Oversight Committee for Elimination, and the other, the Elimination Panel. And the Elimination Panel has now quite sort of a formal way of doing this. Countries actually have to do a lot of work, produce a lot of background data, visits from WHO. They then get a site visit, and from members of the panel, it's reviewed. It goes to the Malaria Policy Advisory Committee, which Diane Worth now chairs, and then to the Director General. And it's interesting, I mean, the next meeting is next month. There are two countries on the list there, Argentina and Algeria, for consideration of elimination. And there are more coming, possibly China next year, which would really be a big event. So that's just a little bit about the history of WHO and how elimination happens.